bring it back, but it's more than basic. It's a portion of his rap at the core is ancient. It's imported like a pack of some more observations are important, like the fact that we're bored of fake shit. More creative, have the floor, so take it. Travel to the core is a normal place.
All right, guys. This is Tattoo with Children. We're gonna jump right into part 2 of the story of Black Spot. We ended part 1 at a very interesting spot. It was the aftermath of Ben's first attempt at hand poking. He did it on his own leg, and had a moment of consciousness or clarity or something, and the aftermath of that. And we're going to jump into what happened, like maybe I would say a week later. I cannot be positive about that in my recollection, but something else happened a week later that really got the ball rolling. In the meantime, I'll just introduce us all. This is Tattoo with Children. I am your host, Flavor Ray and C-Day. Across from me in Seat B is Direct Private Benjamin, and across from both of us is Debonair Man About Town, CIO No Pain. Fellas, it's raining. It's colder than it was yesterday, but it's still pretty good.
Yeah, I'm down.
Agree. All right, so getting into it, I am, in this part of the story, I am acting as the stable point for Ben's journey out into the sea of his consciousness. And after about 4 or 5 days, I'm able to reel him back in, and he's back in the real world ready to take the next step.
Sure. There's only one problem, is that all is true by appearances.
Right.
But I wasn't probably back enough to file away what was happening, so I actually have no idea what happened next.
I don't really think when I say you were back in a place where you were ready to do something again. You weren't sure what. Like you were still sticking your own leg, trying to figure out how inked worked and how and you tried a few things. I think you made like a grid on your leg.
Yeah.
At that point, and it wasn't filled in. It was just a grid. And we noticed every time that you did it, it got a little better.
Yeah, that's true.
So we were very encouraged by this, and we knew the only way to improve from this point would be for you to do an actual tattoo. And we didn't have a place to do it in the context of a shop, so essentially, we decided to do the scratcher thing and just tattoo where we could.
Sure, yeah, that's accurate.
And so we decided that we were going to tattoo it in this spot. I'm not going to say where we tattooed because that wasn't, legal.
Well, yeah, that's probably smart.
But we did find a spot to tattoo. And we found a subject tattoo who was willing. Mm-hmm. And that subject was my wife.
Okay, yeah, I remember this. I'm remembering this. It seems like, if I remember correctly, and again, the memories are real fleeting right now. We're not in free flow consciousness, but it was. She said either do whatever or do something with a pine tree.
Correct. She said, if you're going to do something, then do something that has a pine tree in it.
Okay, and so the interesting thing about that is I look at that tattoo from time to time, and I recognize how much it affects the designs I do today. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's really interesting when you start considering yourself an artist for the first time, whether that be art in skin, art on paper, whatever your media is, art in code, art in people, whatever you consider your media, it's really interesting. The moment you start, if you'll stick with that idea for long enough that you are an artist, you think you're going through all these changes, mm-hmm. and you think you're developing this new style. You think your work now is so much better than yesterday or last year or the year before.
Right.
But if you actually take what you're doing, and you could take a picture of it, mm-hmm. and you could set it next to the first picture you did.
Right.
They're not that different.
They're not that different. They're very, and on my wife's. We'll get to that. We'll get to that. So the first tattoo, it's going to be a while. She is very much willing to be the experiment here, and that is to her credit. It's one of the things I love about her is that she is a very supportive person.
Yeah.
When people need support, and she's super good about that, and she doesn't have any problem making sacrifices. And so she's going to sacrifice this bit of skin. It's a tattoo that's on her right arm. And you guys it's okay. Ben, let's see what we're gonna do here. And at the time, we were working with another one of our friends who was doing some scratcher tats, and you were trying to get advice because he had done one you hadn't.
Right.
And so he kept telling you, the stretch was so important. So you gotta stretch that skin taut. And that guy was working with machines. You got to get that skin stretched. That's the most important thing.
Right.
And so, you start stretching your skin. You start tattooing her, and you're making this design.
Right.
And my wife, if you don't know anything about her, know this about her: when she gets a tattoo, she becomes a Marine. Okay. You cannot tell anything on her face that she's getting tattooed.
Right.
And she can sit forever.
Right.
And so you're tattooing her like, "Are you okay? Okay?" And she's like, "Yeah, man, just stab, just do it."
Yeah.
And it's fucking you up because she's not giving you feedback on what is going on in the skin.
Yeah, and I rely a lot, not just as a tattooist, but as a person. I rely a lot on feedback. So when people can't pick up on that and like, hey, how is this conversation going? Well, fine. But then I'm also reading your body language. I'm also looking at the air around us. And I know that sounds fucking weird, but I'm fucking weird, so get over it. Like, when I don't get enough input, my anxiety grows higher and higher.
Yeah.
Because I'm not getting the feedback that I need from the moment.
Right. And so he's getting more and more anxious, and as he gets more and more anxious, he's trying to stretch the skin further because he's relying on the advice that he got from the only other person he thinks has done this.
Right.
And
and he had done it.
Yeah, he had definitely done it,
but just with a different tool.
With a different situation. And so the tattoo gets done, and the first thing we notice is we can't fucking see it really.
That's accurate.
It was just like. He's like, I've put in all the ink I can, and I don't see any ink.
Right, and it's badass, by the way. Like, I know it's badass, but it also did this weird disappearing thing.
Yeah, it just wasn't really there.
Yeah.
And so we're like, all right, whatever. We'll try again some other time.
Right.
And so me and wife go home, and Ben goes out, and he's hyperventilating.
Yeah.
Trying to smoke, but he can't breathe.
Yeah, it was actually worse than hyperventilating. I experienced, almost a completely different set of emotions than tattooing myself. I don't entirely know what I connected with, but the result of it was just weeping. Like, I wouldn't even say it's accurate to say that I cried. Like it was like full body sobbing, which is, to be fair, it's a little dramatic even as I say it.
He wept like Jesus for the sinners of the world.
Yeah, okay. I think that's why they finished that sentence that Jesus wept.
Yeah, they went with this slightly less dramatic version.
Ray's like, they needed more words.
They needed more words. I've always felt that Bible verse was just incomplete. Jesus wept, okay. Why did you even put that in there? Just take it out.
Right.
But, okay, so anyway.
Fucking incomplete sentences here.
So we go home, my wife and I. Ben is going through some shit that we're not aware of. And so we go home and we sleep good because my wife's gotten a tattoo, and that always makes her happy. And I got to see something pretty extraordinary happen, so I'm happy about that. We wake up, and we look at my wife's arm, and the tattoo is not only there, it is literally 3 times darker than we could have possibly imagined it would be. It's like just, it was like the ink was buried and then just bloomed in her skin.
Yeah, I didn't figure that one out for a while.
Yeah,
that was, and it kept happening to me on different. Now, one of the interesting things to note here is that's the whole thing about experience, is that you could say, well, you've tattooed before. Yeah, but have you tattooed the bottom of a person's foot yet?
Right.
Have you tattooed their inner thigh, yet?
Right.
Have you tattooed the side of their neck versus the back of their neck?
Have you tattooed their ribs and then their stomach skin that's
Right.
in the middle of your body?
behind their ear? The skin that is below the breast is completely different than the breast skin.
Right.
It does not act the same at all, if you ask me. And that's actually one of the areas where I feel like, in a way, machines have a better advantage because they're putting the ink in the exact same way no matter what skin. Now, I'm not saying the artist doesn't have to make adjustments.
Right.
He or she just has to make fewer adjustments.
Right.
Because at least they know that consistency from their ink and their machines are going to be the same.
Right.
Whereas if I'm tattooing, for instance, this tattoo we're discussing, my first tattoo on another person, that is inner arm skin. Yeah, man, completely different than outer arm, upper arm, lower arm, top of the arm.
Turns out, did not pick a great spot for that first tattoo.
Well,
tell you the truth.
yeah,
I
but it was
really
black.
wasn't.
It was
But
black. It was there.
But it got in there
Yeah.
all the way, and so I was super excited.
Yeah.
And so I take a picture of it, and I send it to him, and me and my wife were just ecstatic at how well this tattoo turned out. I mean, it looked dope.
Yeah.
And so I sent it to Ben, and Ben texted back in the most morose Eeyore voice I can imagine on a text. I wish I hadn't bruised her so bad. Because of the stretch that he did on stretching her skin, there's a big baseball-sized bruise on her arm.
Yeah, it's. I mean, if it's a baseball for giants, I mean, it's a softball size, or maybe a little larger. Like, I literally look like I held her left arm in my hand with my left hand and just punched the shit out of her inner arm.
Yeah,
That's what
bruised.
it looks like.
It was bruised heavily, and but I didn't care about that shit.
Yeah, but see, I'm a nonviolent guy. Like most
Right.
people, this is what's funny about, like, people see me in the streets and they take their kids across the way, they
Right,
cross the street, or they think like, man, that guy looks fucking scary and he's always scowling. First of all, I'm never scowling. Well, I'm rarely scowling.
He's
It's
very
just my
rarely
face.
scowling.
And second of all, I don't even think I've ever really been in a shoving match with another human.
Right.
Like, I've screamed at some people. I've called some people some names. Like, I've been very near. But when anybody ever comes at me, I don't back down. But I also seem to almost instinctively figure out what situations I shouldn't be in.
Right.
Like, you've seen this 100 times. Like, I'll be at a bar,
Yeah.
and I'll walk out 30 seconds before the place implodes.
Yeah, Ben has this really odd way of diffusing situations. Like, a lot of times, you think that the situation cannot be diffused, and Ben will walk directly into it.
Right.
Like, directly into the guy's face or directly into his space.
Yeah.
And the guy doesn't back down. Now there's Ben. He just diffuses the situation. Like, I can't really explain it until you see it.
It's really weird. But I'm also in that same way. I antagonize people relentlessly.
And a lot of the time, it could be because I'm standing right behind the guy, and the guy knows I'm going to kill him.
See, I think that's accurate. I think with that ice cream dude in the back alley that one time,
Yeah.
like,
Oh,
I
God.
was laughing my ass off, but I didn't know you were behind him actually making that Marcellus Wallace face,
Yeah.
and he thought he was going to die.
I was about to end him.
But anyway,
Okay. I was very much like he's complaining about the bruise, and I'm like, Ben, shut the fuck about the bruise. Like, literally, asshole. This is a dope tattoo because I'm really excited. For like a week, Ben couldn't look at the goddamn tattoo. Like, he couldn't acknowledge the tattoo because of the bruise. Until that bruise started healing, Ben couldn't really see it. And once the bruise started healing, he started saying, okay, that's actually pretty good.
Yeah.
And for a first tattoo, it's better than good. I mean, like, it's still on her arm. She's still very proud of that tattoo.
Interestingly enough, looking back at it, like, I would say less than 20% of the dots are blown out. Now, 20% of them are absolutely 100% blown the fuck out.
Absolutely, particularly at the top.
Yes, 100%. But for getting under 20-30% of the dots blown out on the inner arm on my first tattoo on another human, I was pretty happy with that.
Yeah, I was ecstatic.
And it was far more consistent than what I had done on my leg.
Yes, it was. It was so much better way to do it on his leg.
Yeah.
And so because of that, I knew immediately that I wanted to be the second tattoo. Mm-hmm. It was like, dude, if you can do this, then you're good enough for me.
Yeah.
And so we started basically. I got the second tattoo on my. Your second tattoo is on my right leg, my lower right leg. Mm-hmm. And
the heron.
Yeah.
Okay. Right.
The heron, and it's a heron combined with some Naruto stuff.
To be fair, that is not me, East Texas, saying heroin.
No,
that's actually a bird. One of those.
The bird. Heron.
One of those things that I'm afraid of in large numbers, but in small numbers I can handle. It's a bird, and then it has some Naruto references from your username actually, Madara.
Yeah.
On IG. And so, yeah, that was a good piece.
It's a great piece, actually. I think it's still one of my favorite tattoos, and it was Ben's real first foray into what will become his titular style, which is geometric.
Yeah.
And so it's like when you see the bird, you're like, it's not like any other bird you've ever seen. Mm-hmm. It's like a bird if it was a geometric design, in 8-bit or something. Mm-hmm. But it's so clean and so straight and aligned with the rest of my leg that it's one of my favorite tattoos. Well, like I can stare at that thing for hours.
Yeah, the interesting thing about that is, I was already picking up. I was reading a lot. That's another thing people don't understand is that. To a lot of people, it looks like I just go off half-cocked, but the truth is, generally when I do anything, even if I'm going to say, take $500 and drive to a casino and put it all on red or black, what that means is that in my personal time, I've spent 18 hours reading stock market strategies, red or black strategies, coin flipping strategies, to the tune of moving into even not really numbers theory as much as it is like game theory.
Right.
But and so that's just, I have to do that background noise for me to play in the real world. Right. And so at the point that I was, starting to tattoo other people, I had probably listened to, 1,000 hours of YouTube videos.
And there were books on tattoos everywhere. We were like, they were just books and books on tattooing, which didn't make much sense to me, but I understood that he was going through a process, and to help with that, I just wanted to get him more tattoos, and so he tattooed my right leg, and then he tattooed my left leg with a different design, and then I believe you tattooed your wife on her hip, which was a real big, intricate design. I think it was during this time period. It was not at the shop yet. And I think it was at that point, after you tattooed your wife, you decided that you were in fact going to be a dot work artist, that you were not going to pursue the avenue of machines. But it wasn't just because you could do dot work. It was for the reason that you saw this as something you could do, plus this would not put you in line with the machine tattoo artists as competition.
Carry the club like Neanderthal, the choir got everybody dancing, dog. Y'all on that X, I'm a sentinel, standing tall, no time to stand still. Please don't meander, dog. They're throwing jazz at me to challenge my rap savvy. I sway like Callaway, I'm ahead, you'll never catch me. Ain't worry about it unless I spit Christmas.
So, yeah, it was so two things happened with my wife's tattoo. One, I for the first time, it was my third tattoo, so this is slightly arrogant to say, but I, for the first time, could see the whole pattern from her foot all the way up to the back of her neck when I was doing that style of tattooing. And I recognized instantaneously that I would be able to just continue doing this and build a relationship with a client and grow the pattern and grow the idea. In other words, it wasn't the same tattoo every time. It was different tattoos, but that I would be able to take one piece and then see the next piece, or 3 pieces down the road and then see the in-between, so on and so forth. So that, but it also made me realize that I felt more, it was by the 3rd tattoo that I felt comfortable enough to make the decision, I don't need a different tool.
Right.
This is my tool.
Yes.
And in finding my tool, I automatically know that there is no reason for me to compete with machine artists because I am not doing the same thing.
Right. That was the point. Like, that was a point where we figured out that what we were doing was not what you would deem now traditional tattoo. That's correct. And that it was never going to be that. Like, that was the point. It could never be that.
Yeah, it was Sarah's tattoo that hit us real hard. That it was that we were doing something that we were going to have to spend 5 years or more developing the style and the skill and the bringing it back. It's like you know, I would liken it to, you know, Indiana Jones. You know, you find this motherfucking ancient scroll and it's badass and everybody wants it, and you read it and you're like, this is the shit. This is what I want to devote my life to.
Right.
And then you do the thing and you're like, oh shit, no wonder it was buried in a cave.
Right. There's a reason why they stopped doing this shit in the first place.
Right. Like, it's worth it. It's a good thing. I believe in it, but it's going to take a minute.
Right.
You know, and that's been a consistent theme throughout the years also, is that, you know, people ask me, they say, well, are you surprised you don't have more followers? No. They say, well, are you surprised more people aren't giving you accolades? No. They say, well, are you surprised more legitimate machine artists are not stopping by your shop to see how you're doing? Not at all. They say, well, why? Motherfucker, it's 2019.
Right.
I started doing this in the end of 2013, beginning of 2014.
Yeah.
Like, I haven't even started. I'm 6 years old.
Right.
No one gives a shit what a 6-year-old does.
Yeah, it's just not a thing to worry about right now.
Yeah, like, so I'm doing some great fucking work.
You are.
I love my work.
Yeah.
And I think my clients are very happy with my work.
Most of them, yes.
But at the same time, I'm 6 years old.
Right.
Now, if I hit the 15, 18, 20-year mark, okay, and I don't have a guy like, let's say, Pat Casey drop by and say, hey, Ben, I see your work and I'm impressed with your consistency.
Right.
See, I'm not even mad that he's not impressed with my work yet.
Right.
At the 15, 18, 20-year mark.
Just impressed that you've still been doing it for 20 years.
Impressed that I'm still working, impressed that I'm hustling, impressed that I haven't given up, impressed that I understand what hard work looks like. Mm-hmm. That is a completely other thing.
Yeah, that's a different thing than being impressed with you as an artist or even as a fellow artisan. You know, like
right.
Say you're in the same business. Like, he doesn't have to be impressed with you being in the same business.
His work, I tattoo a lot of people that he has tattooed.
Yeah.
I've got to say that in 6 years, I've never heard a negative story.
No.
In
about
6 years,
no.
I've never heard any unprofessionalism. In 6 years,
no.
I've never heard, well, I really wanted this, but I got that.
Right.
No, Pat Casey is what I want to be when I grow up.
Yes, indeed.
Like I recognize that I'm probably never growing up, but we all have to have goals.
Yeah.
But but our art style and work, it's just not the same, man.
It's essentially different.
Yeah, it's ink and skin. It's put in with needles. All of that is true, and I have a massive amount of respect for him and the people he works with. That I would say out loud, I want to be him when I grow up. But our style, our media, Our media is the same, but our styles are completely different. And I can have a massive amount of respect and want to accomplish what he accomplished in the community.
Right.
And still recognize that I'm not doing the same thing. So I have my own learning curve.
It's a different service than what you get at traditional tattoo shops. And what that meant for us at the time was there was no model to follow.
Right.
Like, so we were going to have to, at that point, I realized we were actually going to have to open a fresh shop. Like, there was no way to piggyback off somebody else or bring in a partner. It's like, that none of that was going to work now.
Yeah,
we're
because
going to have to open a fresh shop.
The conversations would have been too long. Well,
Yeah.
I'm going to use a machine, and you're going to do this. Well, I'm going to do this, and you're going to do that. Well,
It was so confusing in the planning stage, I knew it couldn't work.
Yeah.
And so we're like, all right, we're definitely going to open our own shop. And once we made that decision, we never really looked back from that idea. So we had to open our own shop, and we want to do it very quickly. Because simultaneously with this, the coffee shop is still going, and it is literally crushing us both.
Yeah.
It's because of the way that we did the coffee shop. In order to sell a cup of coffee, like one cup of coffee, I would talk to 20 people. I would go to offices. I would go to, parks. I would do whatever I can. I would shake 200 hands to sell 20 cups of coffee every day. And it really got to me, and it was really getting to you.
Absolutely.
And so in order to remove from that, we really opened this tattoo shop. And so we started looking for places. Like, we talked to people about, do you want to get involved with it? And no one else was interested. Like, even the work of going to find the place to have the tattoo shop, no one wanted to do other than me and you.
Right.
And so it was just me and you going around town, looking at spaces, areas of town, trying to figure out what would be the most viable way to open up a tattoo shop. And we were getting absolutely fucking nowhere. It was really frustrating.
Yeah, well, I think we can bring some value here to anyone wanting to start a tattoo shop. One of the things that you have to find out, first of all, is where you can be zoned.
Yes, in Lufkin in particular.
Well, in Lufkin in particular, but anywhere in the United States. I mean, you literally need to go talk to the health department.
Yep.
And from their recommendation, you need the health department in your area, whether it's a city or a county. And then you need to go talk to, from their recommendation, go talk to planning and zoning. And from planning and zoning, go talk to the proper people at the city hall.
Yep.
And so
I was at the city hall a lot of the time, getting maps, talking to councilmen, trying to figure out. And what I figured out was that tattoo shops didn't have a good reputation in Lufkin anyway.
Right.
And so they weren't real eager about having another one. I mean, it was literally like saying, hey, that prison that nobody likes, I'm going to open up another one. I mean, it was just like, it wasn't anything positive in their eyes. And
100%.
so, I was having to go down there multiple times because they were giving me the runaround, trying to get me to quit.
Well, and then the other thing about it was, from talking to you, then they're coming through the coffee shop back where I'm at, and they're like, hey, you're really not doing this thing, are you? Like,
Right.
What if you started a bar?
Right.
And I'm like, dude, I'm already trying to get rid of alcohol. Like, I
Right.
don't, that's not my thing. Like, I don't, I'm borderline alcoholic right here anyway at this point in my life. Like, I'm not going to start a bar. Well, what if you did like a Chuck E. Cheese? I'm like, how did you just go from alcohol to children? Like, the fuck? Like, and they're just, and I didn't understand because you hadn't gotten back yet and told me about your conversations.
Right.
And so literally we're getting, the guy is like running around trying to influence the people we're talking to. Like, hey, don't let him rent your space.
Don't let him do it.
But
don't
it's not
let him
because
do it.
he didn't like you or he didn't like me. It's because he just simply didn't want another eyesore.
Yes. He didn't want another, part of the town that they had to be embarrassed about. Because the other tattoo shops were embarrassing.
Yeah.
And so
In Lufkin.
in Lufkin, all right, this is all about Lufkin at this point because this was a very Lufkin problem to me. And the point, the whole point of the story is I couldn't get anywhere. Like, I was beating my head against the wall, and I could not get anywhere about finding a space to have this tattoo shop. Like, they were only willing to put the tattoo shops on a certain part of town. Even today, they're still willing to put tattoo shops on a certain part of town.
Well, that's again interesting thing about Lufkin. You have to be zoned commercial,
Or-
light industrial, or heavy manufacturing.
Yes.
So a lot of the town is actually zoned for local business.
Local business is not a zoning term that exists, as I can see, anywhere really outside of Lufkin. I don't know any muscles that does it. Where it was kind of put in place, seems to be to let the hospital run their businesses around town.
I don't know enough to speak about
And
it.
they like wanted, you had to have lunch counter or something around there, and so they're just like, we want to have this type, but not this type, and so they did a different kind of zoning. And because of how much of we wanted to get the tattoo shop near the downtown,
Right.
and they were not having that really.
Yeah,
so,
and particularly though, that's just one of mine and your goals. We
Yeah.
still believe in, when we started the coffee shop with Mark, the whole point was to bring people downtown. The whole
Yeah.
point was to revitalize Lufkin.
we believe strongly in the center of this city.
We very much do, because I think it. I hate to say it, but it's fucking biblical. Like, out of the heart, flows all the rest of everything you do.
Right.
So if the heart is damaged, then the rest of what you're doing is not going to work.
Right. It's going to be, it's everything's going to be strained on the outskirts if the center is rotten.
Yeah. So our, even though right now we're not particularly any more than renters with Mark Hicks.
Right.
Dude, we 100% believe in what he's doing, and we'll be there for him any day.
Mark is one of the strongest parts of this town because he believes, like we believe, in the center of the city, and he's put his money where his mouth is. So shout out to Mark Hicks. So at any rate, we're not getting anywhere, and so my wife steps in again. She was really the hero of the early days in a lot of the ways. She went and she finds this building that we've probably passed, 10,000 times and never seen. It's this building on this hill on the main drag running north-south in Lufkin called Timberland Drive.
Right.
And on the north end of it is like it's the older part of town on the north end, and so it's the less affluent part of town, you could say. And right in this really weird section of it, next to a car dealership and next to what we refer to lovingly as the Mexican baby shop.
Right. They sell Mexican babies there.
They sell Mexican. They're the Mexicans, and they sell baby accoutrement.
Now, to be
Strollers
fair, the
and
only reason we call it that is because we kept asking people and the owners and other people what they do. And everyone in Lufkin would be, oh, you're right next to the Mexican baby shop.
Yeah, we got that over and over again.
And both words matter so much to me and you, and we're just like, okay, but you're a city councilman. I don't think that's the appropriate wordage. Like, it sounds like you're selling children.
Yes, that's what it sounds
You
like.
know?
And so since you're saying that, it makes me very much doubt, your ability to run the city. But at any rate, she found this building, and we found out who owns it, and turns out it was up for rent. But the space was not conducive to what we wanted to do. And so we're like, hey, we need to make certain changes. I don't think you're going to make them. And they're like, no, we'll make them.
Yeah.
And so they ran in, and they just completely renovated the thing for us, and
yeah.
we knew that we had to go.
Yeah.
And so we rented the space. We made the sign. We talked to this guy in Tennessee, the guy that made the logo.
Yeah.
Was he in Tennessee? And so we talked to him about making a logo for us. No, we picked the name first. Sorry. We picked the name Black Spot Tattoo Company, and we came up with that because of the spot in Ben's hand.
Yeah, I already have the black spot tattooed in the center of my palm.
And it occurred to me that we're doing a different type of thing here, and no one in the tattoo world likes it. We're doing a different type of thing here, and no one in Lufkin likes it. We're doing a different type of thing here. No one believes it can work. So essentially, we were making war against the world automatically. And making war against the world is the first rule of piracy. So I say, okay, we're fucking pirates.
Yeah.
If we're going to be fucking pirates, then let's not hide from it. Let's just tell them what we do. Mm-hmm. And so Black Spot Tattoo Company fit us immediately. And we talked to this guy in Tennessee. We said, hey, guy, we need a logo. And he's like, yeah, I do logos. We were like, all right, what do you want on it? And I was like, well, we're into pirates. And the company is called Black Spot Tattoo, so you can do something about black spots, something about skeletons, pirate flags. Like, all right, that's all I need.
Yeah.
And the guy ran with it and came back with like 5 or 6 designs.
Yeah, they were all fucking brilliant.
And they're all great.
Yeah, shout out to Alex Sattler.
Alex Sattler, thank you. I could not remember the guy's name to save my life. But, yeah, he came up with 5 of the best designs we'd ever seen. And we picked 3, I want to say.
I think 3 was all we could afford.
Yeah. And the first design that I really liked became the main logo was the clasping hands with the black spot in it.
Like two hands shaking
Two hands
with a
shaking.
circle in the middle of the palm.
And the reason why I love that is because what is a handshake? A handshake is 2 opposing forces creating unity.
Right.
And that's exactly what we were doing. And it had the black spot in it, which makes it seem like the hands were pinned together.
Yeah, well, and also it's a very old image. I mean, I think the reason Robert Louis Stevenson used that imagery in words in Treasure Island was we can all argue about how people were crucified back in the day, whether it was the palm or the wrist. But the interesting thing is, during that time period of humans attempting to learn about torture, I'm pretty sure they did both.
Right.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they're like, hey, let's put it in the finger today. Hey,
Right.
let's put it in the palm. And so it references some religious symbolism.
Yeah.
That's a very, very old thing, for humans. And so I did not intend that to be the case, but that is something that people have mentioned to me over the years since we've been promoting that logo.
And you and I both have had our palms tattooed. Mm-hmm. And that is by far, for me, the most painful place to get tattooed.
Yeah, I haven't found another one.
I mean,
that's just like it.
It's fucking horrible in every way.
Yeah,
and
Aaron Dixon was the one that did the black spot in my palm. He is out in Austin at a shop, and I gotta say, I mean, here we are 12, 15 years later. It's bright as it was then, and it may have had one touch-up that I've forgotten about from him.
Uh-huh.
But besides that, no one else has touched it. And that's a pretty remarkable feat for any machine artist.
Yeah.
And Aaron did a bang-up job. But yeah, it's your brain definitely goes into another place when you get your palm tattooed.
Yeah. It's just a pain like anything I've ever felt in my hand before. And so that aspect of it, that executioner's aspect of it, was very much I liked it.
Mm-hmm.
I like that idea of it. Like, if you want to do this thing, you're going to have to sacrifice something.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we both knew that.
My name ain't Mikey, but yeah, I rock. You know why? Because I don't give a fuck. That's why it doesn't matter whether I'm cool.
And so we had a lot of great ideas. And at that point, when the shop opened, like I think right before the shop opened, I went to San Francisco to learn how to pierce. We went to do dot work and piercing.
Right.
I will tell you that part of the story some other time. I don't think it fits in with this part.
I think it doesn't, but it was a very necessary place, and I'm not going to get into the details. I'm following your lead, but it was a very necessary place for us to go because we were still, so for instance, on Facebook, Instagram, Google, some of those older search engines, it's very difficult to find online just a tattoo shop.
Right.
It's always tattoos and piercings. So, rather than just like, well, let's get in and learn this, we were like, well, we're kind of flying by the seat of our pants over here with tattoos.
Right, let's do piercings the rightest way we can.
Yeah, so the Professional Piercing Association
Right.
or
The APP,
the Association
the
of
Professional Piercers.
Yeah.
And
And you went there, but like I say, I think we were still trying to determine what our brand was.
yes.
And I mean, we had never really done something this out of the ordinary.
No, we hadn't.
You
We had never done anything this bold. Basically, we were attacking an industry
Yeah.
that had been around for a long time. Not attacking it per se, but we were saying out loud, we're going to do this differently than you do.
Yeah, and when 9,999 people do it one way, generally, when you start a business in that industry, some of what you do includes what they do.
Right.
And so,
And we were trying to do that. We were
Yeah.
trying to be a little bit like them.
yeah, we wanted to be the little brother. But
Yeah.
we didn't realize that we were the, if not the pirate reference, we were the crazy shaman out in the woods.
Yeah. It was like once we actually opened up, we began to realize just how different we were. We were much more different than we imagined ourselves to be. Like we literally, the people that wanted a machine tattoo, literally couldn't get a tattoo with us in those early days. And so our clients tended to be the people who were also felt like they were on the outside. And we did a lot of interesting work. We did a lot of things that we probably wouldn't do today. Pieces that we probably wouldn't do today. We worked with different. We tried on different apprentices. Which is difficult to have an apprentice when you're an apprentice. But
Yeah, I mean, I feel like for the most part, we've maintained a fairly consistent level of honesty.
yeah,
Now, I think the longer we've been at it, the more we've understood that honesty didn't necessarily mean maturity,
yeah.
because we weren't mature.
No, we weren't.
And-
We weren't
and
mature
so-
at all.
And so while, so for instance, let's just say a friend of a friend of a friend hears about it. They want to have a different experience. They walk in the front door. They want this design. I'm the only one there, let's say. I say, hey, I can't do that design.
Right.
They say, well, what do you mean? You're a tattoo shop. So you go through the whole spiel and you explain, like, yes, but we're using these different tools, and that limits our ability. Also, because of these different tools, I'm learning different things,
Right.
and I know what I can and can't do. And they're like, well, okay, but can you do this part of it? Well, can you make it bigger? So,
Right.
so those days were a lot of stenciling, a lot of drawing, a lot of dialogue. And then the person goes, you know what? I kind of agree with you. I think I need to run over to Casey's and get this. And you're like, cool, man, no problem.
Right.
But I just spent 3 goddamn hours and didn't make a dime.
Right. And so because of that, money became scarce. So at one point, I went and got another job, and just spent money. I just spent months pumping money into the shop to keep it open.
Yep.
And that was probably for about a year, where I was just floated. I was just floating the thing month to month to
Right.
just give us enough time to figure out what to do next.
Yeah.
And we had brought on Katie by that time, and so
Yeah. So
Katie Katie had actually been hired at the coffee shop, and we transitioned her from the coffee shop to the tattoo shop.
Well, when she graduated high school, so she worked for her senior year at Standpipe Coffee House, and then when she graduated Lufkin, she moved to College Station to go to A&M.
Yeah,
And then, on and off, say every 3 to 6 weeks, she would drive back for the weekend and hang out with the crew.
yeah,
Well, the crew has since migrated from Standpipe to Black Spot, so she's hanging out at Black Spot. She's like, yo, what's this? This is cool. I don't remember exactly what number she was, but she was in the top 10 she was in the early 10s of people I tattooed.
yeah,
So one night, I don't remember how long in, but one night very early on, I called over to Casey's to see if Caleb or Krista could get me in. And when I say early, I mean 2 or 3 in the afternoon,
Right.
which is not early.
That's not early for
a shop.
anyone else.
Yeah, for a real shop, that's not early. But I called over there, and Caleb was real apologetic. He was like, dude, I'm just fucking slammed. Like, I can't get you in tonight. But we still have our appointment next month. And I was like, yeah, no, that's cool. I was just checking. And I think it was one of those nights that you were either covering music at the coffee shop, or something like that.
Yeah.
And I told Katie, I said, hey, do you want to tattoo me? And she's like, no, that's not going to happen.
Right.
And I'm like, well, I mean, it could happen because I could set up a sterile station. We have the gloves and everything. We have the license. I can show you how to do it as you're doing it. And she's like, yeah, that's not a good idea. And so I'm like, all right. So listen, here's what we're going to do. Let's just set up the station. We'll go outside and we'll smoke, right? I'll smoke. Katie doesn't smoke.
Katie doesn't smoke at all.
And I'll be like, if someone shows up, then we know we should if someone shows up, then we know we shouldn't do it.
Right. If a thing happens that stops it, then we're going to stop it. But otherwise, we're going to go with it. And so, long story short, you went with it. And I think she did a blackout tattoo on you. Like, it was just a solid piece.
Yeah, it was the Senju clan from my knee to my ankle.
Yeah.
Because that's a good thing for a first timer.
Yeah, just go ahead and
tattoo something like a foot long.
And she did what Ben couldn't. Like, this was so fucking crazy. Even today, I get chills thinking about when I saw that tattoo. Because I've already told you when Ben tattooed the first time what happened. The ink disappeared, and it came out the next day.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
When Katie came and tattooed for the first time, it was black as fuck and didn't do anything else. It was just there.
Yeah, I was super pissed off at the end of that tattoo.
I looked at that tattoo, and I looked at Katie, and I said, okay, this is what you do now. Now you're a tattoo artist.
Well, so what happened was, at the end of a tattoo, generally, you'll take that, you're still gloved up, and you set your needles down and everything, and you take a paper towel or a washcloth, and you put the green soap on it, and you just start cleaning up your mess. You've been doing some dabbing and some dry wiping and some things like that.
But you do the big wipe.
Yeah, you do the big
major
wipe. So I tell her how to do it, and she's like, okay, so hold it like this. So put the green soap on like this. So then, do I start at the top or the bottom? Katie's very meticulous like that. And so I said, no, just fucking wipe the thing, And so she wipes it. And it feels good because green soap looks and smells great.
Green soap is good stuff.
Yeah. Anyway, that's another podcast.
That's a whole other thing.
But and I'm like, no, actually wipe it.
Right.
Like, what are you licking it off with a kitten?
Stop
like,
dabbing it. Wipe the fucker.
Yeah. And she's like, well, you told me earlier, and I'm like, okay, but this is the end. We're done. Blah blah blah. And so she wipes it, and finally I'm like, just give me the damn rag. So she hands me this dirty paper towel, that she's got gloves for.
Right.
She hands it to me, and I how you take a shop rag and you ball up your fist and wrap it around your fist and then scrub it.
Because I'm getting the fucking thing off of here.
Yeah,
whatever
right.
It is.
And so I'm like, I'm gonna fucking scrub because this can't be, I'm scrubbing. She's just not rubbing hard enough.
She's like, the ink is still just there.
Yeah.
Like, she's just fucking with me.
Right. And so I push as hard as I can, and I'm like, the fuck is this shit? It's like black as night. It's like the blackest night I've ever seen. It's not going anywhere.
It was a blackout tattoo with hand, which we honestly, guys, I cannot stress this enough. We didn't think this was possible. We did not think that you could do a blackout tattoo like that with hand poke the first pass. And she did it and blew our fucking minds. I knew from that point forward that this girl had to be a tattoo artist. And so long story short, turns out she was a tattoo artist and eventually decided to do that full time.
Yeah, and well, but there's a little more to it than that because, I am anything if not concerned about people's ability to, make the best decision for their life.
Right.
Because, my life has been the way I wanted it to be.
Right.
And so I want that for other people. And so, Katie's going to school at A&M, and I don't want to take away from that, but she's beginning to get more and more clients. She's, obviously, she was better than me to start with. She's learning faster.
Right.
And I think that the unique thing about that was I did not want her to transfer or to come back and potentially, because she's a very good student, to potentially miss out on her future.
on the real path she should be taking.
So I'm like, hey, you can only come back if you transfer and be a full-time student at SFA.
Right.
That's the only way it's going to work, you know? And she's like, okay, no problem. So she does that. And then about 9 months later, I'm like, hey, like literally you're losing more money every week than tuition is at SFA.
And by the way, she did not like college. Like that was the main thing. She wasn't liking college. She wasn't liking her major. Like the whole thing wasn't working as far as the college was concerned. We were like, dude, you know what? Let's stop fucking around.
Yeah.
You know, let's just call a spade like we always do.
Yeah. Let's just go straight up and honestly, I think you and I both know, because I'm a slow learner. Mm-hmm. I think you and I both know that if it wasn't for Katie in those first 2-3 years, we wouldn't have made it.
No, absolutely not.
It's not even like the other people that we were working with brought a lot to the table. They brought enough to the table to keep going.
Yeah.
But they didn't keep the lights on.
No, it was Katie who kept the lights on.
Katie Meadows kept the lights on. And you know, that's one of the funny things I get from people is they're like, well, you just like her because she's cute. You just like her because she's a woman. You just like her because she listens to what you say. Okay, first of all, I've never liked anyone because of their sex.
Right.
Their gender. Like, that's just not a thing that happens. Second of all, I don't like people because of the color of their skin. I just like people.
Right.
Okay? Third of all, Katie does not listen to what the fuck I say.
No, she doesn't.
We fucking argue 7.5 hours today over one goddamn sentence I said. So that's not true. And second of all, when you see you know, at the time she was pretty much an employee.
Yeah.
When you see an employee go, hey, I made $600 this week, but I noticed that we got this $420 bill here, so I'm just going to go ahead and pay it. And you're like, what?
What did you just say?
Like, what do you? No, I got that. Don't worry about it. Like, and she's like, no, I want this to make it. Like, I'm just going to go ahead and pay that. Katie, you can't do that. That means we only made You only made $180 this week. And she's like, yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, I can make it on that.
Yeah, and then that's what people don't understand. They say, well, Ben, why do you back Katie up at every turn? Well, because Katie paid the light bill, which is why you can get a tattoo today. So that's why I back Katie up on every turn.
Not only that seat that you're laying on right now,
right?
Katie built that fucker with her own hands. We would go out and buy shit,
right?
Furniture, and then get it out to put it together and be like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah, and then
Katie would say, hey, I need you guys to leave the room real fast.
Or no, she would. Sometimes she said that. Other times we'd be so mad we go out back to smoke in the shade.
Yeah.
And we come back and the thing's put together.
Yeah, and Katie just standing beside it. She's like, I love doing this shit.
Yeah, she's like.
And so, dude, like, Katie was invaluable. So we're going to continue this for the next episode. Until then, this has been Tattoo with Children. You can find Tattoo with Children on Instagram and Facebook at Tattoo with Children. You can find it on Twitter at Tattooed With, because fuck Jack.
Fuck Jack.
You can find me on IG at Madara Shadow. You can find Ben on IG at Black Crow Brother and at Black Spot Tattoo Company. And you can find Mike Payne at CIO Payne and at is it Payne? Is Payne.points?
That's correct.
At Payne.points. All right.
Love y'all.
Love you.
Later.
We were born to bring it back, but it's more than basic. It's a portion of his rap, but the core is ancient. It's supported like a pack of some more observations. They're important like the fact that we're bored of fake shit. More creative, have the floor, so take it. Travel to the tourist